Okay. Hello, welcome to Fort Hays State University's November Family Webinar. Today we are doing a webinar on managing the extended break transition. So this is presented by Dr. Kenton Olive. He is the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs. So I hope you enjoy the webinar. We will be starting up our webinars again in January, so be on the lookout for some of those and when I put some of that online. So here is Dr. Olive. There we go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you happen to be watching this webinar. My name is Kenton Olive, and I oversee student support services at Fort Hays State University for the Division of Student Affairs. And I'm a clinical counselor, and I do counseling at the Kelly Center at our counseling center as well. And today we're going to talk about being home for the holidays and what it might mean when students come home. Maybe it's been an extended period of time, 2, 3, 4 months since they've been home. And if they have been home since they've been to college, it's usually just for a weekend, a couple days. So some different things to consider as students come home for an extended time.
Yeah.
Okay. So when students get ready to come home, what do you imagine it will be like for the student and for the family? Will being home be fun, or will it be more stressful for both parties? Students, hopefully, will be leaving behind the stress of schoolwork, which can be very nice. If it's between semesters, they won't have to worry about coming back to classes until the next semester, but they may be thinking about classes that they have coming up as well. So there may be a little stress with that. But hopefully they'll be able to have some downtime and relax. It'll be the first time in a long time maybe they've seen family at home and friends that they left behind. They have new friends at college, but some of their friends they've left behind. And they may be seeing them for the first time as well. Also relaxing and sleeping in. I don't have to get up for a 7:30 class. Maybe I don't have to get up for an 8:30 class. Maybe I don't have to get up for a 9:30 class or even a 10:30 class. Hopefully when I'm home, I can sleep in and just relax. But there could be some different expectations that the family has as well, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Other good times going home, fun things, parties and good food. Maybe it's the first time in a long time that students have had homemade cooking, and they're looking forward to what their family used to make them and how they can enjoy that food for the first time in a long time. And oh, don't forget shopping, especially if it's during the holiday break. They may want to do some shopping, and that can be fun. But we also want to talk a little bit about what could be potential stressors for students and family. Maybe there's conflicting expectations. I know when my children were in college, as far as I was concerned, they were still in the 5th grade. And as a parent with children in college, it can be a difficult transition. There's a lot of changes happening in families when a child goes off to college, or even when a child goes off to take a job somewhere and then comes home after a long time, an extended time away. There's a lot of changes on both sides. So let's talk about a few of those. So what's going on for our students during this time? Well, they've been away from home possibly for the first time for an extended period of time, a good length of time. They're free to define who they are now. They're exploring their identity. Their whole task is to determine for themselves who they will be, who they want to be. There's rapid changes going on. Students have several options to choose from when they get to college. They're moving around. They may be changing jobs while they're in college. They have a plethora of social groups they could join more frequently than at any other age when they get to college. At Fort Hays State University, we have over 100 student organizations that students can choose from. And it can be a little overwhelming, and it creates a lot of changes in their lives. So focusing on themselves is another thing that they may be doing more than ever now. They typically don't have to deal with anybody else's rules. They're becoming an adult. Their expectations may be different. They get to decide now Now we got to keep in mind there's rules in residence halls and rules in apartments and things like that. But for the most part, students are now able to choose when do I go to bed? When do I get up? Things like that. So they begin to learn and begin focusing on themselves more and more. They're also feeling in between. As the slide said, there's a long gradual transition from financial and emotional dependence to self-reliance. They're beginning more and more to rely on themselves. They're becoming more independent. And it can be scary. It can be a hard thing at that time. I'm not a kid anymore, but I don't quite feel like an adult. I talk to students a lot that they say, I don't want to do this adult thing. I don't want to be an adult yet. And that, frankly, I talk to adults that say that as well. But, they do feel in between when you're a student. They're 18 maybe, but they're only 18 as well. And then possibilities. Students are optimistic. Now they may be able to live out their dreams. There's a lot of possibilities out there that they're introduced to when they get to college. So expanding a little bit more on those kind of things, the identity exploration, it occurs despite what family may think. If you think about it, the people that raise us, we typically take on their beliefs and their value systems. And when students go away for an extended period of time, they may learn about other people's values and other people's beliefs, and they may want to explore those or at least study them and talk about them with family and friends. Sometimes those can be difficult conversations with families. We talked about rapid changes a little bit. And as students change, it can be hard for the family to keep up with them. My students, I had a daughter that went to school here for 2 years and before she transferred, and it was difficult for me because she was changing, she was doing all these things on her own, and I'm her father, but she was an adult as well. So sometimes it can be difficult for families as their students go through these changes. Freedom on campus is very different from what may happen when students go home to visit. The whole focusing on yourself thing. Students, when they're on campus, are focused on themselves and their friends and their classes, hopefully. But when they go home, focusing on themselves may be different than what the family wants. Families may look at, okay, let's talk about this. What do we want to do here? How do we do this? How do we get together? Students may never have more mixed feelings than when they're at home trying to be an adult child, since they may feel pressure to be both sides of the coin. Students, when they go home for the first time for an extended period of time, may feel like, okay, am I a student like I was in high school and a child, so to speak, or am I the adult I'm becoming? And what are the expectations that my family has of me? Students may also feel constrained when it comes to possibilities by family trying to protect them or warn them. For the most part, families mean well. And I think for the most part, students mean well also. But sometimes there can be some conflicting things when it comes to that. So let's talk a little bit about the parents now. What should parents and what will parents expect out of their students when they come home? Should students spend a lot of time with family? Should students follow the same rules they had prior to going to college? Is there a curfew? In college, there probably wasn't a curfew unless they had one in a residential hall. So what are the rules going to be? Will students be expected to be more of an adult than they want to be right now? Or will they expect to be the same kid that they be expected to be the same kid they used to be before they left for college? What will parents want students to do while they're back? Do students need to live up to certain expectations that the family has? And if so, which ones? Depend on them more than students or less than students want? In other words, does the family depend on the student more than the student wants or less than the student wants? And what are the dependencies both ways back and forth? What does the student depend on for the family? And what do they not depend on anymore that they may have prior? Should students coming home as adults help out around the house like before? I'm guessing probably yes. And that's something that can be talked about. Will parents or families expect students to tell them about college experiences? And will students want to do that? Will families want to act like nothing's changed? Will students want to act like nothing's changed? Will students be required to sleep on the couch now because their old room is now a den or a sewing room? What kind of changes have occurred in the family that the students didn't know about or might have known about but haven't experienced until they get home? Those can be big things as well. So what about what students may want? They can't be a kid forever, right? I don't know. Like I said, as a parent, as far as I'm concerned, my kids are still in 5th grade. But I also realize that they're 25 and 22 as well, and are well on their way to being good adults. Students' expectations. Students may want different rules during their stay at home. They've been on their own for the past few months and have made their own rules or lived up to different rules when they were at college. Students may want to be treated differently than they were prior to leaving for college. Maybe the student thinks, as we've talked before, I'm an adult now. Are they adults in the parents' eyes? How do we manage that and bridge that gap if there is a gap? Students may have different values and beliefs, or at least be questioning those of their parents or siblings. Kind of like I talked about earlier. Students, when they get to college, are exposed to other people with different beliefs that may or may not have different beliefs. And they may talk to them, become friends, and want to explore those and learn about them as well. So how can these conflicting expectations be managed by the whole family? I think the key words here are managed by the whole family. Students and families can prepare for this in advance. You know, we typically don't think about it. We don't think about that it's going to be different when my child comes home from college for the first time. It's just going to be great. Things are going to be wonderful. There's going to be no conflicting things, no arguments, nothing. But if students and families think about it in advance, they can talk about dealing with how the roles may be changing. The role of the student to an adult, the role of the parent, and how they treat their young adult. So what should families think about during the transition? Well, I think the most important thing that students don't realize, and I try to point out to them from time to time when I can, parents are also in a transition period. You know, we talk a lot about how students are transitioning to adults, how they are becoming more independent, how they're learning how to manage money maybe for the first time, how they're learning how to do their own laundry maybe and eat and make sure they keep their lives in order. But we don't think about parents are changing as well. It's a transition period for parents and they may struggle. You know, we've all heard of empty nest syndrome when the last child leaves the house. It can be a struggle for parents, but it can also be a struggle when the first child leaves the house, if there's more than one. And if it's a second child that's leaving and coming home, there's transition issues on both sides as well, because all children are different. And so I think it's important that we remember, especially students, that your parents, your families are also transitioning. And those things need to be discussed. Because parents as adults may think, I don't need to talk about this because I can handle this transition. But students will feel it. Trust me, they will feel it. So it's important that we all sit down and just have a discussion. And also to realize that parents don't magically know how to see students as adults. You know, they have raised students, families have raised students since they were babies. And then they go off to college and immediately they become an adult. Well, it's not immediate and it takes time. While it takes time for students to realize what it is to be an adult, it also takes time for parents to realize and families to realize, how do I see my student as an adult now? This is different for me. You know, they're not as dependent on me as they were before maybe. And so I have to understand that and try to figure out how to manage that as well. And even then, parents will always be parents and may always worry about what is best for their children. I told you my children are in their 20s. I still worry about them. I still want the best for them. And it's a difficult thing. They both live away from me, which probably is a good thing. And so letting go of that rope and letting them go out on their own as much as I possibly can is important. And it's the same thing for all parents, but it can be difficult as well. So what can we as families do? Well, communication is huge, and have a family discussion about expectations is really important. To communicate wants and needs is very important. That way there's no surprises, or not a lot of surprises. Students may be reluctant to say, okay, these are the changes I'm making in my life, so this is what I want when I come home. And parents may be reluctant to give some of those things up as well. But communicating about those issues is very, very important, and we need to focus on doing those things. Students should also remember to respect the fact that they may be returning home and be seen as a guest. And you know what? When that happens, that's okay. I go back to the whole communication piece. And if this communication can happen, at Fort Hays, we have fall break next week. That's a week. That's only 1 week. But then 3 weeks later is the semester break between semesters. And that's an extended period of time. So having these conversations, maybe if your students are coming home for fall break, or even if they're not, having them on the phone, conversations about what the expectations will be. How much do I need to help out around the house? When do you want me home? Students, please make sure that you realize your parents are transitioning as well. I can't emphasize that enough. It'll be easier for families to enjoy the holidays and their time together if they, as you can see on the slide, take the time and effort to keep communication open. That is so key. Try to be flexible and attempt to compromise. Students, please understand that flexibility is key. You may be going through a lot of changes when you get to college, but just remember your parents aren't going through as many changes, at least with their beliefs and values like that you may be. So let's be flexible. Let's compromise as much as possible, because we want the holidays to be fun. We want families to be close. We want them to enjoy each other's company. And so being flexible and attempting to compromise is very important. Try to be understanding and give each other the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes, when I work with families or whatever in counseling, somebody may say one thing and somebody else takes it another way. And so giving that other person the benefit of the doubt by saying, okay, can you explain that to me? Because this is how I took that. This is what I heard. It may not even be what was intended. So try to make sure you keep those lines open as well, giving people the benefit of the doubt, because that's very important. The other thing is, don't assume negativity. I mean, it's easy to do that, especially when we're struggling with a conversation or something. We assume negativity. Assume that people have good intentions. Parents assume your student has good intentions. Students assume your parents have good intentions, because typically we do. There may be a misunderstanding, but the intentions aren't to hurt someone else. The intentions are just to make sure we're heard. And being heard is very important when it comes to families getting back together after being apart for an extended period of time. Be respectful. Students, be respectful to your parents and your families. They're the people that raised you. They want what's best for you. So please be respectful to them. And parents, understand that your children are transitioning as well. They're learning a lot of things. Their world is opening up to them. They are meeting new people. They are making new friends. They're learning things that they may never have even known existed as they get in farther and farther into their college and majors. So try to be respectful of what people are learning. If you disagree, ask questions. Ask questions. Tell me about this. Don't just immediately disagree with someone. Say, tell me about this. I don't understand it. It sounds odd to me. I'm not sure I agree with it, but explain it to me. Keeping those lines of communication open will help families to go a long ways in having a great holiday season and getting along. And then the next holiday season, it will become even easier. And most importantly, I really believe, and I tell people this a lot, we can make the choice when we get up in the mornings to be happy. So students, when you get ready to go home, choose to be happy and choose to enjoy it. Knowing that life will happen, there'll be some things that have to be discussed, but that's okay. And parents, welcome your kids home. Enjoy tell yourself you're going to enjoy the time with them, knowing there may be some conversations, but knowing it will be okay. And just remember, families, you raised your children. You did a good job. You did the best you could. Now they're learning. So let them learn, but just keep the lines of communication open between everybody. Thank you for listening. I hope you really enjoy the holidays. Ashley?
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that presentation. It doesn't look like we have any questions, but if they do, feel free to reach out to us. Again, my name is Ashley Templeton, and this is Dr. Kitten Olive. We can always answer any questions that you need. My email, again, is amtempleton.se@fhsu.edu. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I can always forward that on. So thank you for joining us, and look forward to those ones for next semester.